fells, but I want to run a mission, a yard from the gate of hell.
Hello, Christian patriots, and welcome to Church and State, where we strive to plug you into the pew and plug you into politics. I'm your host, Caleb Collier. With me, as always, Pastor Gabe Blomgren.
How you doing, Caleb?
I'm doing very well.
I'm curious if our guest today remembers that song. Remember that? It's "Run to the Battle." It's an older
Steve Camp, good friend of ours.
Yeah,
beautiful song.
He's given us permission to intro the show with that one, so we're going to run with that, just like him, run into the battle. All right, so we've got a very special guest in studio with us today, and I'm going to introduce him right away, even though we're going to talk about a funny story right off the bat that doesn't really have to do with what he's doing here, but still, I want to get his thoughts on this. Maybe new uniforms for the department. I don't know. So our guest here is a candidate for Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. I am talking about Rick Whitehead here. Rick, thank you so much for joining Church and State.
Thank you very much for having me. Glad to be here.
Good. All right. So we'll get into the campaign in a minute here, but I had to get your thoughts on this story here that I saw. So this is what's trending. Lace shorts are here for men this summer. That's right, lace shorts. And they come in a wide variety of some very beautiful colors, all the colors of the rainbow, as it were. There are a lot of pastels here I'm seeing. Perfect in time for Easter, really. You know, these guys look like Easter eggs.
These guys are inappropriate, man. These are like see-through.
It's disgusting.
This is your poor grandmother. It looks like somebody took her lace doily and put it in Easter colors.
It actually does. It looks like those see-through tablecloths that Grandma used to put on. They're green and pink and blue and purple and yellow. And these guys, I love it because the guy in the yellow in particular, he's the kind of person that I would expect to be wearing this outfit.
Yes, and all of our Facebook listeners, we have this up, a photo of this right now on our YouTube.
This guy looks, blatantly homosexual, but I love the guy in the middle probably the most because they got this guy. He's the one wearing the blue. He's wearing a ball cap. He's tattooed. He's got a beard on. So he's like, like your typical male.
He's got the alpha.
Yeah, and he's going to be wearing this see-through lace shorts and shirt for that matter. So no new uniform for the sheriff's department?
Absolutely not. Those are disgusting. I would not even want to see that on a woman.
I agree. You're right. So where would you pin the badge? I don't even know on that one.
It would rip the lace all the way down and fall.
All right. So that's enough of that. Let's get into to our guests. So you have been running. You've actually been campaigning for quite a while here. That you started. How long ago did you start the campaign?
March of 2018.
Okay. So you knew you wanted this job.
Well, I had several peace officers in the area encouraged me to run last time, but I didn't have any bones to pick with Sheriff Wolfinger, and I know him professionally from my training company, so I wasn't going to run against an incumbent. In early 18, he and I had coffee, and he told me he was not going to run again. Prior to that, I just really felt the Lord impressed on me to do more than I'm doing. My training company was not enough. I've been out of uniform law enforcement since the end of 2010, and I just felt I needed to be doing more community-wise. I wasn't sure what that was, and when he and I had coffee and he said he wasn't running, the light went off in my head as that's where I'm supposed to be. That's where my experience and skills fit, and I basically started that day. He told me, so I've been working 2 years on the name recognition.
I think our audience is probably detecting a little bit of a southern accent there. Where are you from originally?
I grew up in the Ozarks of Missouri. When I went in, or after high school, I went in the Army. The Army led me to Texas, and my civilian law enforcement career is 30 years in Texas.
So you're not like a carpetbagger from California.
No.
You're coming from some, where the conservatism well. So there's no risk of
Which at this point, if even if we have carpetbaggers like I'm not calling Alex Barron a carpetbagger, but he's coming out of California, correct?
I wouldn't call him a carpet. But I'm from California.
Yeah, so if we can get a patriot from just about any state at this point, this country, we need more people up here. So
yes,
who think like we think, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts on the Lord. You Lord yourself is the one who gave you the unction to do this. So I instantly, as a pastor, just feel like the Lord brought you here. He divinely set you here.
When my wife and I discovered North Idaho late in our careers in 2007, 2008, we discovered North Idaho, and we knew we were coming to the Northwest. We just weren't sure where. But we knew we were getting out of the heat of Texas, and Austin had become such a liberal pot. We knew we had to get out of there. We discovered North Idaho, decided this is where we were coming when we retired. When we got here, we talked among ourselves as this was like the Ark. I've since changed that feeling. It's like the Alamo. As the country degrades, the last stand will be here.
Yeah, that's good. I really like that. You know, we jokingly refer to Idaho as God's country, but the reality is Idaho just took the designation of the least regulated state in the union. And so when we look at the biblical model for government, it is limited government. It is representative government. And so calling this God's country is actually very accurate. I appreciate the fact that you wanted to move here, that you saw this area as an ark at first, and then saw, you know what, it's not just good enough to build a ship to protect us. We need to actually have defense. And I picked that up from declaring this as the Alamo.
And I think, or strongly feel, that this election year is a pivotal year nationally as well as locally in that regard.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm looking at kind of your resume here. You've got a lot going on here. You're a U.S. Army veteran. You know, thank you for your service on that one. I won't tease you being a former Marine. I already did that to Alex.
An ex-Marine?
No, former. He's getting me. Look at him. he drew first blood right there, right? But you got NRA lifetime member, master peace officer, master instructor. You've got a lot going on here. You graduate from the FBI National Academy, conservative Christian Republican. So, you know, you sound on paper like you are a great candidate for this office. Who's your biggest opponent? Who do you see yourself as really running against in this race?
There's four viable people in this race: myself, Grimm, Norris, and Edmondson. I don't discount any of them. One of them has zero experience. Well, that's not true. He has 60 days part-time. One is from California, and I've never heard any of his experience other than where he worked and what position he held, but he's never said what he's done. And then the other one's an insider, and one of the reasons I'm running is a lot of the current deputies, retired, and some of the retired ones even work for me, encouraged me to run because they want somebody with a broader perspective that has done more in their career in different places and seen and done different things to lead instead of the same old, same old.
So when I say the term constitutional sheriff, what does that mean to you in your own words?
Well, I've taken the oath to defend the Constitution 3 times in my life. Once when I went in the Army, once when I became a civilian police officer in the suburb of Houston right after the Army, and then when I moved to the sheriff's office at Travis County in Austin, Texas, there. So I've taken the oath 3 times to defend the Constitution. I've never rescinded that oath. I view myself today as kind of a 10th Amendment constitutionalist. As the states gave birth to the federal government did not give birth to the states.
That's good.
And we've really lost that. And I think it starts at the local level to start exerting that control to take that back, that it belongs to the states, we're not dependent on the feds. The defense for us, not the other way around.
No, that is
It's
fantastic.
nice hearing
Yes.
this from someone who graduated from the FBI.
Yeah.
So you could have a very federal outlook. You could be, I'm not going to mention any other sheriff's names, but you could be like them who have this just Fed appeal, and I'm fed up with that. It's like the difference between major corporation versus somebody who's caring about the people.
My experience was 3 months in-house. The FBI has an FBI Academy for their agents, and then they have the National Academy, which is where law enforcement leaders can apply and go to, and less than 1% of law enforcement gets to attend. I was fortunate enough to get to attend in 1999. It's basically a 21-hour college load. You're in-house for 3 months. I told my wife, I said, think of me as being in the Navy and I'm on a ship. I'll be back in 3 months. I learned some great stuff there. And one of the things I learned was forensic statement analysis, which is one of the things I now teach and consult with agencies across the country in. So it was a great experience, but if there was any indoctrination going on, it didn't stick.
So you brought up the 10th Amendment, and it leads me into a question that I ask every politician. And I'm sorry if you don't like being called a politician. Some people don't.
I don't consider myself a politician.
All right, but you are running for an office,
I
and
am.
so this is an important question. So I like to ask what your favorite amendment is.
The Second Amendment, because without the Second Amendment, there aren't the other 9. And the Second Amendment actually, in hindsight, probably should have been listed first because it protects all the rest of them.
Yeah.
No, that's good. And I even like the fact that you are only addressing the 10 amendments right there as well. It shows your mindset, because the first 10 are really the best that were created, and they've gotten just progressively worse as it went down the line, oddly enough, except for the 27th, which was actually written by Madison, which I've brought up before, but I'm digressing. Anyway, so I like to hear that you like the Second Amendment. You've already brought up the 10th Amendment. That's a very important one as well, especially for states and for the people, because that's another element to the 10th Amendment that far too few people understand, that it's not just for the states, it's retained by the people as well.
Right.
And so I love hearing that you have a more local and more statewide perspective in this office for sheriff, because far too often we see where law enforcement has what Gabe was talking about, that mentality of more of that federal mentality, and that they forget quickly that it's to protect and to serve its citizens.
Yeah.
And I reverse that. I think it is to serve and protect.
Oh, it's good.
Serve first and then protect.
Okay.
Wow, you just you opened up just some of Jesus' philosophy, and it's not even philosophy; it's the way he lived. He came first to serve.
Correct.
So I got to ask you now. That being said, what would be your most relatable biblical person? I'm not going to say character, because there's no characters in the Bible. There's only people who we're going to meet and spend time with. Who do you most identify with? It could be even a female. I know some guys are like Ruth, that type of like, she just stuck with your people be my people. So any person in the Bible, who is the one that you relate to?
I think most would be Nehemiah. Pick up your sword and keep working on the wall, but have your weapon in hand for.
Wow, that's good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah,
that story.
That is good.
Trowel in one hand,
Yeah.
in the other.
Well, I love that you asked him that question, Gabe, because you can tell a novice Christian from one that actually is reading the Bible in that answer. If he were to say something like Matthew or something like that, but he picked a lesser known individual from the Bible, and you know the story behind it as well. So that's fantastic to hear. And you're right. We need that mentality, especially today in America. We need to be working, but we need to be armed. We need to be watching that horizon.
Absolutely.
Where's the enemy at?
The watchman on the wall.
Right.
I love that. Very good. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah. So let us kind of tell us some thoughts, some ideas that you have for the sheriff's department. Is it going to be an easy transition where you just go right in and keep everything the same? Or do you have some ideas that you want to bring in that you feel would actually better the department?
Law enforcement over the years, and I see it as I travel the country and train, and last week and the week before that, I was out of state training. I 20 to 25 weeks a year, I'm traveling and training leaders in law enforcement. One of the things I've seen us kind of digress into over the past several decades is the us versus them mentality. Some people call it the militarization of police. I don't see it as much as militarization as just the attitude of us versus them. And I despise that attitude. One of my goals for the sheriff's office is for every employee in the sheriff's office, not just the deputies, to be ambassadors to the county. So whether you're a resident or a visitor, if you have an issue, you can approach a deputy or any employee in the sheriff's office, and they will do their best to help you resolve that issue. And it does not have to be law enforcement related. If there's a pothole at the end of your driveway on the road that hasn't been kept up with for a year or so, and it's falling on deaf ears, we'll help you get hold of the right people to get that fixed. It doesn't have to be law enforcement. Back to when I was a kid, you walked up to the policeman and talked to him, and he was a figure that was revealed in the wanted them to be your friend and you felt you could talk to them. Now you see more of a standoffish, and I hate that. So my goal is and it's not going to be, is to get us back to where the citizens, when they see a patrol car behind them, is not,
What did I do wrong?
yeah, it's like, cool.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. You're describing that 1950s era, where we had the white picket fence, and you're right. You'd see the police officer, and you knew his name even, and he's driving by, and you're waving at him. Hey, how are you doing? And they stop and they talk with you. But yeah, we need to get away from that us versus them mentality, that fear of, the police officers that, oh, am I going to get pulled over? Or no, that guy's just patrolling the streets. He's making sure that I'm okay.
He's serving and protecting. He's not trying to find you doing something wrong.
Oh, that's good.
There's a time for people to go to jail, and there's a time for people to get a ticket, but that's not all the time.
There's a word that's been hijacked, and I'm going to call you Sheriff Rick because I'm prophesying he's going to be Sheriff Rick.
I like it.
I like the sound of that.
Sheriff, why is it we are so maligned now with the word patriot? I was recently asked by a reporter from the West Side to define the word patriot, and I found myself a little bit backpedaling because it's been so attacked. She asked me, what does it mean to you? And I want to ask you the same question. What does being a patriot mean to you?
I think going back to what Caleb just said about 1950s, to me it's God and country, apple pie and baseball.
No, I mean it's a very good answer. It's short, it's to the point, but you're right. That mentality, it's Americana. Believing that this country was established with those Judeo-Christian values, and that we want to return to a point where we are, that law-abiding citizens, that we understand the laws that are in the books, we understand the Constitution and the Declaration and the Bill of Rights, and that we are all in this together, that we are fighting against these big government policies. And that's what I'm kind of reading. I may be putting words in your mouth, but that's kind of what I'm reading into what your statement was.
Government at every level is way out of bounds. They're doing things that were never intended for them to do. Even the local art commission that's funded by government, nowhere in the Constitution does it say the government's supposed to fund art. It says it's supposed to protect it with patents, but it doesn't say fund it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in Kootenai County, that's great that you brought that up, because we just had this one actually, I believe, made national media, because we had in Coeur d'Alene there, we had this big obelisk of public art, and it had a hammer and sickle on it.
Right.
That was included. That was been paid for by the taxpayers. That's ridiculous that has been allowed.
And that's what I had in mind when I brought that up, is that was paid for by tax dollars, and government has no business in that. We are so far out of bounds. I mean, nationally, way, but even on the local level, we're paying for things that don't have any business being paid for. And some of those are sacred cows with the citizens. So it's going to be, kind of hard to peel their fingers off of it.
That is a good point. I've often said that if I had a magic wand and I could just wave it and it immediately returned to the original intent of the founders, that there would be riots in the streets, because the people are not ready for that degree of freedom. We didn't get here overnight. It's been slowly moving in the direction of a nanny state. And so we have to turn it around slowly and move back.
And earlier you mentioned Idaho now being the least regulated, where we're still way over-regulated.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we might be the least of the states, but we still have a long ways to go.
We certainly do. Idaho is doing a lot better than Washington State, and there's a lot of other states that are doing a lot worse than Washington State as well. But it is at least good to see Idaho moving in the right direction.
Agreed.
And I'm glad that you're a part of that. That you're, I agree with Gabe. Calling you sheriff prophetically. I do believe that you are going to be the next sheriff for Kootenai County. And so I'm very pleased to see that you have this constitutional mindset, and you're going to be helping to move the state towards the proper direction.
There was an incident, Sheriff Rick, in Priest River, where a man was seen by himself to be basically a hazard to himself, and I believe it was what is the health care for
It was
our
the VA.
veterans? Yeah, the
VA.
Veterans Administration decided it was their right in business to take away his firearms, and we know Matt Shea was there along with the local
Heather Scott.
Heather Scott, and the sheriff of Priest River was there. Where would you see yourself in that type of situation?
Absolutely right there. Sheriff Wheeler and I have talked about that
Mhm.
when we first met and got to know each other and talked about that. And he, although being elected, cannot officially support me. He does. I would be right there. That is absolutely the job of the sheriff. And I tell people every day in conversations that the government will have to take their weapons from my cold dead hands before they get to yours.
That's good. I
That's
love
good.
that. That is really good.
That
That's
extra-
a campaign slogan right there.
That extra level of protection just makes me feel so much better because I know what I would do. And it just feels nice that somebody who I've elected has that same zeal and passion to protect me and my kids.
I think it may be time to move church and state over to Kootenai County, Gabe. I don't know.
Man.
We'll find room for you.
There you
Would
go.
you be covering Sandpoint? Is Sandpoint
No.
within? Okay.
No.
That's Sheriff Wheeler's area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is why he's suing them over the Second Amendment stuff up there.
Well, good.
Yeah. No, that's a great policy. So no, I love it. Have you ever read the book, The Doc? Because that's what you're talking about, actually,
Yeah.
right there.
Not that I recall.
Okay, so I highly recommend that you grab that book because you'll love it. You'll be able to pour through that very quickly. But what you're describing is that shield of local government, specifically the sheriff, and where the federal government is established to have that shield standing in front of the international communities. If the federal government ever turns on us, now it's the state level with that shield defending against an overreaching federal government. If the state then turns on us, it's the sheriff specifically that is keeping that shield up, defending the American citizens. And so I love hearing you say that.
The sheriff is the constitutional officer in the county, and it's his job to stand up for that against any overreaching government.
That's good. So, that leads me to an interesting question for you. You are an instructor, so you have that teacher's heart. And with what you just said, with the sheriff needing to understand the Constitution, is a constitutional course something that maybe you would put your deputies through?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I've attended 2 in the last year just to help me refine my thought process and make sure I'm where I'm supposed to be.
That sounds so much better than there's a sheriff that I know locally. He loves to take his deputy through some SPLC training. So this is very different, me hearing this. It's just very refreshing, Caleb.
Yeah.
And with those who don't know, the Southern Poverty Law Center,
Mhm.
yeah, very,
SPLC.
great organization.
No.
Why my deputies, who my tax dollars are being allocated to, why they would ever have to go through this nonsense, just beyond me. But I digress.
In my mind, that's a domestic terrorist organization.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you. SPLC is one of the worst out there. They're actually decaying from the inside. There's a lot of issues that are throughout there. But these are let's just actually spend the last 4 minutes or so here kind of discussing that, because there really is, while you said we want to shy away from the us versus them mentality as far as law enforcement and citizens go, there is an us versus them mentality when it comes to organizations like the SPLC and people who consider themselves red-blooded patriots, Americans. And so you actually brought a list, and I'm going to steal this from you later on, and Gabe and I will probably go through this on an entire show, but we can touch upon it just a little bit here. You brought in this list. It's how many is it? Like 27 or
72 types
72.
of Americans that are considered potential terrorists in official government documents. And of the 72, when I perused it, I myself probably hit high 60s, if not all 72 of them.
Yeah, when you got into this thing, I mean, you had anti-abortion advocates. You had people that are opposing the North American Union, which is basically a European Union version.
If you own
for
a Gadsden
America.
flag was on there, I
Yeah,
believe.
yep. If you believe in "Don't Tread on Me," if you, I mean, it even had like evangelical Christians on this list. That's covering all 3 of us here at this table. Why has the leftist federal, not everybody in the federal government is leftist, but there is a group of leftists in the federal government. Why are they attacking America so much here?
Because they have a world government agenda that they're trying to get in place, and we are standing in their way. So they're trying to remove it. I think one of the mistakes President Trump made was not firing every Obama appointee when he took office. I think those seats being empty would be better than leaving them in place. And that is where the constant battle comes from today, I think.
Yeah, that's good. It reminds me, you remember the movie Walking Tall?
Yep.
Where he walks in after he's elected as sheriff and he says, "You're all fired." Yeah, I mean, you're right. That really should have probably been the first thing that President Trump did. Now, unfortunately, the swamp is so big that it's hard to even, once you fire somebody, and he has fired a number of people, but once you fire somebody, oftentimes the only place to recruit from is still the swamp. And that's a difficult thing. Luckily, at the local level, you're not dealing with as big of a swamp. I mean, there's always a swamp everywhere you go, but it's not as big for you.
Right.
Oh, that's good. All right, so we've got about 2 minutes left, and I really wanted to turn the microphone over to you to just kind of talk with our audience about why you're running, why you're a great candidate, and hit some of the your issues.
Why I'm running is, once again, I really feel the Lord impressed on me about 2.5 years ago to run. That was backed up by local deputies and other law enforcement asking me to run. I have 33 years in uniform, 40 plus years experience, including my training company. When I semi-retired in 2010, I ramped up my training company. I still travel 20, 25 weeks a year conducting training in agencies all over the country. My company actually has an international reach, but I send associates to do that work. I don't do it myself. I train in leadership, field training programs. I design training programs. In fact, Post Falls Police Department uses a new supervisor training program that I designed specifically for them. I train instructors for in deception detection. The state of Idaho Post, which is the certifying authority for Idaho peace officers, recognizes me, and I'm the only one that is not a current active law enforcement officer in Idaho, certified in Idaho. I'm the only one they've ever designated a expert in leadership, field training, and forensic investigations. The sheriff's department I retired from, I spent 25 years there, promoted up through the rank of captain. I've led major crimes, which is homicide. I've been on officer-involved shootings and murder scenes and led those investigations. SWAT commander, communications commander, crime lab. I've led all aspects of the sheriff's office, managed $80 million budgets. And those are the skills I bring to the sheriff's office.
You've got a great resume. All right, well, we're running out of time. Thank you so much for joining Church and State. We really appreciate that.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. All right, Church and State is brought to you in part by Covenant Church. Remember, the tree of liberty is most likely a birch. And with that, Church and State is out.
God bless. We're still live. So 1 second here.
Okay.